which has been baffling officers in Leicestershire since it happened 10 weeks ago. Ken Brown was 55 and he'd been in the hotel, pub and restaurant trade most of his working life. On August the 25th, Ken was shot dead at his home. The 40 officers assigned to the case have questioned Ken's associates, both past and present. Their inquiries have taken them all over the UK and to countries abroad, but the motive remains a mystery. All that is certain is that somebody, for some reason, wanted him dead. The team's hope is that somebody tonight can tell us why. Our reconstruction begins on Monday, August the 15th, 10 days before Ken died.
Let's have you. All of you. There you are. Come on, here you are. Where are you? There you are. Come on, girls.
Ken shared his house in Barrow-on-Soar with his long-standing friend Graham Bailey. The two men had become business partners in 1988.
Ken, if I don't leave the airport right now, I'll miss my flight.
On the morning of Monday the 15th of August, Graham set off for a fortnight's business trip abroad.
I've known Ken for around 12 years. He was the best friend that I've ever had and ever likely to have had. He was a very considerate chap to me, up front, in front of all his staff and workforce, and some of the business deals we've done in the past. He may well have been seen as a very ruthless business person, but behind closed doors, when he goes home at night and he's feeding his chickens and his geese and his dogs, and he's walking around the fields with his cattle, is the softest person you would ever wish to come across.
The businesses ranged over 4 counties, from Yorkshire down to London, and most of Ken's working days were spent on the road visiting them all.
Hello, Kavy.
Hey, Jeff. Everything all right?
Yes, great, absolutely. Yeah.
How's Sue?
Very well, thanks. Very well, yeah.
He was a very generous man, to the point that one of our members of staff unfortunately had a fall and she had to go off work for a while. He sent her flowers. He was always asking about her all the time. He made a point that when she came back to work, that he went and seen her, went in the kitchens to see her, made sure she was all right and that sort of thing. He always thought of his staff all the time, all the staff.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Brown. Are you all right? Not bad, thanks. Here.
Yeah, everything's going well?
Yes, very well.
Yeah. What are the bookings like tonight?
Tonight, Thursday night, very good actually. There's over 100 in.
On Tuesday the 23rd of August, Eleanor Jenkins had been shopping. As she drove home around midday, her route took her along Walton Lane, where Ken and Graham lived.
A light-coloured Mercedes just came from out of nowhere, really, behind. And, well, I didn't even realise it was there till it was halfway past me.
And that Mercedes was to be seen twice more over the next 2 days. Ken rarely went out in the evenings. His regular routine was to feed his babies, as he called his animals, at about 8 o'clock, and then an hour later he'd go back and lock them safely in the barn for the night. At around 10 o'clock the following evening, Wednesday the 24th of August, these two women, driving close to Walton Lane, saw a white Mercedes waiting to pull out of a farm track.
It was a white L-Reg Mercedes, the new L registration Mercedes, 4-door saloon. Well, my friend, she said, he's flashing his lights, does he want us to stop? And I said, well, I'm not stopping along a lonely road like this. If he wants us to stop, he'll wait until we get into the village and then we'll see if he's still flashing his lights. I would imagine as he overtook us and went on up the road, the speed was between 70 and 80 mile an hour.
That Wednesday night, Graham phoned Ken from his hotel.
Ah. Yeah. Is that all right, good or bad?
I would ring Ken most evenings, and we would speak for maybe up to an hour about the general business.
Well, no, I don't agree, quite frankly.
10 miles away, some 6 hours later. It's now the early hours of Thursday, the 25th of August. Terry Branston was patrolling at Murphy's Lake at Thurmston on the lookout for poachers.
Morning, lads. Broom angling, water bailey.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what you're doing here, please?
It's just waiting.
You're not fishing.
Yeah, mate, we're just waiting for a mate. We're going to go night fishing with him.
Yeah, well, you're not supposed to be here. It's members only. Are you members?
No, mate, we're not members, no.
Well, the thing that made me suspicious was they got a bonfire. There wasn't fishing.
so therefore they shouldn't have been there. So there was, if there wasn't fishing, there was up to something.
I'm sorry, but you just have to go.
We're only here to meet you, mate.
Who's that then?
It's called Samo.
All right, me old cock sparrow, we'll leave. Before we do that, do you know the area?
Oh, born and bred here.
Yeah? What I want to know if there's any night fishing up here at Barrow-on-Soar. I think it's called Proctor's Pleasure Park.
Barrow Deeps, that is.
Yeah.
Just there, Barrow.
Terry noticed that an area on the map was ringed in blue biro, a stretch of land close to where Ken lived. He tried to get a look at the Astra's registration number.
I just got the first 3 figures of the number because they got a poncho draped over the bonnet which covered the last 3 figures. The only figures I could get was A832.
Later that Thursday, Ken arrived home after his day's work at around 5 o'clock.
Sandy, Goldie.
3 hours later, shortly after 8 o'clock in the evening, Eleanor Jenkins saw the white Mercedes again.
He just come flying out of the giveaway without looking in either direction. And I very nearly hit him. I know it was the same car. I think it's the size of the car, the way it was driven, as I was in quite a rush.
At around the same time, Ken was on the phone to Graham's mother.
Oh, well. I have to come and put the babies to bed. And don't forget, I'll be round at 9 o'clock in the morning. Okay. Bye.
If Ken followed his normal habit that night, he'd have gone out to settle the animals at around 9 o'clock. Andrew Nash lives at the end of a narrow lane a few hundred yards from Ken Brown's house.
As I was driving down the lane, about 9:30, the headlights swung round into the field and I saw 2 people, one of which I saw the face of. I've only ever seen farm workers walking through there. It's very unusual. When I got out of the car, the men obviously weren't visible because they ducked into the trees. And although I was fairly startled, I presumed at the time that they were just up to some form of mischief, and so simply just walked into the house.
The next morning, Ken's body was found in the barn. He'd been shot in the chest at point-blank range. Well, Detective Superintendent Cox, you have one really important forensic clue, don't you?
Yes, the type of ammunition used in the murder was very unusual. It was a modified shotgun cartridge where the cartridge had been opened and the lead pellets had been melted down to form a single slug about the size of a ball bearing and then repacked using components from an Ely LG cartridge. Now that may mean something to people who are in the shooting fraternity. Ely LG cartridges are very rare. In fact, only about 1,000 a year are manufactured for use in the UK.
Right, so anybody who knows somebody who uses Ely LG ammunition, you need to hear about them so you can eliminate them from the inquiry.
Well, certainly anybody who knows anybody who modifies ammunition using those parts, yes.
Right. You also need to eliminate the owners or the drivers of that light-coloured Mercedes, which was seen several times in the days before Ken's death.
Yes, it was seen 3 times, perhaps the most significant being the night before at 10 o'clock when it emerges from a lane which goes to the rear of Ken's premises and would have overlooked the premises.
And then the 2 men at Murphy's Lake early on the morning of the day Ken died.
Yes, these are two men. One is described as having a London accent. He's about 6 foot tall, with close-cropped ginger hair, a very stocky build. The second man with the northeastern accent is somewhat smaller, wears a black baseball cap with a Nike motif on it. They certainly have some very good quality army equipment, according to the water bailiff.
Are they possibly the same men, do you think, who were seen lurking in the trees that evening?
Well, I'd be very interested to know that. The 2 men seen in Burton Bandle's Lane are about 800 yards from
Ken's house as across the fields, and they have no real reason to be there. If they were just poaching, I would appeal for them to come forward so that we can eliminate them from the inquiry.
And finally, you're very interested in the fact that somebody saw a Land Cruiser type of vehicle parked outside Ken's house at around the time he died.
Well, we think it's around the time he died. Ken didn't make a phone call at about 10 o'clock that we would have expected him to make. He was a man of regular habits, and he would have run Graham Bailey at 10 o'clock, which he didn't do. A lady going home at 10 o'clock saw a four-wheel drive type vehicle parked outside the house, and that may be an absolutely vital sighting.
So if anybody recognises that, please do call. But if you can shed any light at all on this case tonight, please don't hesitate to ring. We're here until midnight on 0500 600 600, and you can ring the incident room direct if you prefer on 0533 484 002. There's a reward in this case. The number 0533 for the incident room, which is the code for Leicester, 484 002.